You are listening to the New Book of Daniel podcast.
Nothing about the gods is good. Even the Lord itself is good. He is a good God. The real of the spirit.
What happens when an entire population believes only what its government says? We'll be discussing that today on the New Book of Daniel podcast. Hello and welcome to the New Book of Daniel podcasts. My name is Daniel Bobinski. I'll be your host on this adventure. And if you've been a subscriber to the show or you've listened to a few of them, you know that I've been kind of doing a long form podcast, like 30 minutes to an hour. And I'm changing that. We're switching over to a short form podcast, trying to keep it within 10 to 15 minutes and hopefully do more of them. So look for that change starting today. Also, you notice that I haven't been on for a few weeks. My last published podcast was with Dr. Joshua Dobko, an emergency room physician. If you haven't had a chance to go back and listen to that, I strongly recommend you do. Lots of information from Dr. Dobko there. And today we've got a lot of stuff going on with coronavirus, and I've written 3 columns over at uncoverdc.com I want to recommend for you. Medical misinformation, parts 1, 2, and 3. So go over there and take a look. Today we're going to launch into some more COVID stuff. Hey, surprise, surprise. But let me start off by telling you a little story. By weakening the independence and strength of people's minds, forcing people to live in a constant state of propaganda-induced fear, the party is able to force its subjects to accept anything it decrees, even if it's entirely illogical. Now, if you've read George Orwell's book, 1984, you know that I'm talking about that book, 1984. Written in 1948, about 1984, futuristic society, but of course, George Orwell was off by about 50 years. But in that dystopian novel, you've got the 2-party systems of government have gone away. We now have the party. And the Ministry of Truth exists in the party because the party believes that power is the only truth, and that those with power can make the truth, and that the truth can be whatever it is that the party decides. I will encourage you to read the book. I will encourage you to watch the movie, although the book's probably going to be better. But keep this theme in the back of your mind as I go through a few stories for you here. The Ministry of Truth can decide whatever truth is, and they can change truth, and they cancel out truth if they deem it to be not true. They can change actual facts. They go and they change it. And if you read the book, or if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. But now let me tell you a little bit about this Dr. Knut Wittkowski, former head of biostatistics, epidemiology, and research design at Rockefeller University. He also holds 2 doctorates, one in computer science, one in medical biometry. And Dr. Wittkowski believes that the coronavirus should be allowed to create herd immunity, and that the pandemic will only end after the virus has sufficiently spread through our populations. He disagrees with social distancing. He says that the only way that to get rid of this is herd immunity, that locking down is going to prolong the virus's existence and its harassment of us, that the lockdowns are mostly unnecessary, and that herd immunity is the way to get rid of it, and the majority of people who have the virus won't even realize that they have it. So this is Wittkowski. Let me also tell you a little bit about Judy Mitovitz. She holds a joint PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology from George Washington University. She's a postdoctoral scholar in molecular virology at the National Cancer Institute. She was research director for neuroimmune disease at the Whitmore Peterson Institute, and she collaborated for 20 years with Frank Ruscetti, a pioneer in the field of human retrobiology. Mitovitz believes that this coronavirus, COVID-19, could not have come from bats. She's got a couple of books out. One's called Plague, and also a book called Plague of Corruption. I'm going to recommend both of those reads, by the way. And then we have Dr. Delores Cahill. Her life's work has been studying the human immune system and how it works. She's renowned for her work in bioscience. She's a member of the Advisory Science Council to the Irish government. She's a member of the International Science Advisory Board. You'd think that with a global pandemic, with a novel virus, these people would be at least worth hearing, right? What do these professionals that I've just mentioned have in common? Well, all three are experts in their field of study. They've all held or currently hold prestigious positions, and all three of them have been interviewed about COVID-19, with those interviews being posted on social media. The other thing that they have in common is that all of their interviews have been pulled off of social media. Now, I understand if a dog groomer wants to write a book or make a video about how to be an expert on moon landings, right? Not really qualified. So I could see where he's telling you how to build a rocket to launch to the moon. Dog groomer 101 we're going to pull that video down. That's just a dangerous video. How to build rocket. No, but science professionals with decades of experience in their fields, in their areas of specialty, getting their videos pulled down. Well, all right. So now let's listen to social media's side of this, right? They say, well, hey, free speech doesn't entitle you to a platform. We don't have to host your content. Okay, that's true. But with these professionals, things are a little bit different, right? By pulling down their videos, what we're really saying is that these doctors are liars, that they're misinforming us. And I want to know which employees at YouTube have superior education to Dr. Mitovitz or Dr. Cahill or Dr. Wittkowski, that they could decide that those videos don't belong on YouTube. Or which employee at Twitter is actually determining the factual correctness of each of these doctors' statements. With each of these social platforms, we've got a problem because they're relying on the Ministry of Truth. They're relying on the World Health Organization to decide what statements are true and can be published and what has to be taken down. If you want to doubt me on this? Well, let's just go back to what the World Health Organization's Director of Health Emergencies said last week. He said Dr. Wittkowski's comments about the need for us to get herd immunity is a, quote, really dangerous calculation. I don't know. I look around at the hospitals around our country, and I don't see any hospitals being overwhelmed with COVID patients. And that was the purpose of the lockdown, and flatten the curve. But somehow the narrative got changed and the goalposts got moved. So here's the World Health Organization saying, no, we can't have this information out here. And lo and behold, YouTube's CEO, Susan Wojcicki, has told CNN, quote, anything that goes against their recommendations, she's talking about the World Health Organization, anything that goes against the World Health Organization recommendations would be a violation of our policy. And so removal is really an important part of our policy. There you go. The Ministry of Truth, the World Health Organization speaks, and no other learned scientists can counter what the World Health Organization has to say. Wittkowski told the New York Post he has no idea why his interview was removed. He said, quote, they don't tell you. They just say it violates your community standards. There's no explanation for what those standards are or which standard it violated. In other words, scientists challenging science is no longer allowed. The Ministry of Truth, I mean the World Health Organization says so, right? So two things here, two things I want to close with. One, we are not limited to Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. There are alternative new social media platforms. You've got MeWe, which can take the place of Twitter, can take the place of Facebook. You've got BitChute, can take the place of YouTube. Videos on there can be viewed. And I've got special news for you. All these interviews that I've just talked about, if you want to watch them, I'm going to provide links in the show notes down below. So you can go watch these videos and you can determine for yourself whether or not these scientists are saying anything accurate, okay? You can do your own research. The second thing is having to do with this common phrase, follow the money. Follow the money. Who funds the World Health Organization? I'm going to be talking about this more in future videos, but I want to just point this out to you. According to the World Economic Forum's website, the World Health Organization receives about 51% of its funding from its member nations. That's all the nations in the world. The United States is by far the largest donor to the World Health Organization. But if you look at who the second largest donor overall to the World Health Organization is, you'll see it's Bill and Melinda Gates. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation gives more money than even the second largest nation donor, which is the United Kingdom. So right there on the website, it tells us, and I quote, the second largest funder is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which provides 9.8% of the World Health Organization's funds. Like I said, we'll be talking about this more in future podcasts, but just for now, I think that debate getting squelched in our country is a really bad thing, because as soon as these doctors put something out, any doctor, and there's more of them getting put out there and more of them getting pulled down, the media attack dogs come out and debunk it, right? They're going to debunk it. Anything that disagrees with the official Ministry of Truth perspective, they're going to debunk it. And if that doesn't work, they're going to release their character assassins. That's been happening too. So to wrap this up, I do suggest there is a global medical establishment and that they are out to silence anybody who disagrees with their agenda. And yes, they have an agenda, and no, that is not just a theory. Their own websites publish their agendas, and we will be talking about those in future podcasts. Speaking of which, if you want to get notified about future podcasts, I encourage you to subscribe. Just click the red subscribe button and then click the bell and then click the word all, and then you'll be notified every time we upload a new video. If you want to contact me for any reason, just contact me at newbookofdaniel@outlook.com, or you can put some comments down in the section down below, in the comment section. I do read all comments. You can also reach me on Facebook, which is just facebook.com/newbookofdaniel. You can follow me on Twitter at newbookofdaniel, and then of course you read my columns over at uncoverdc.com. This is Daniel Bobinski. You've been listening to the New Book of Daniel podcast. I thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you guys on the next show.